Welcome to the Gay Buddhist Forum, where teachers from all schools of Buddhism offer their perspectives on the Dharma and its application in modern times, especially for LGBTQI audiences. These talks are offered freely to the world and made possible by appreciative listeners. If you would like to support our efforts to share the Dharma with underserved audiences, please visit gaybuddhist.org. There you can donate, find a list of upcoming speakers, or enjoy many hundreds of these recorded talks dating back to 1996.
Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Gay Buddhist Fellowship. Again, my name is David. I'm facilitating today. So I want to welcome Kevin Martin. Thank you for joining us today, Kevin. Kevin is a student in the Dharmacharya lay ordination program that's guided by the Venerable Panavati Bhikkhuni and Reverend Panadipa Bhikkhu, which is in the oh shoot, you'll have to remind me of the name of the Sangha, and I think it's North Carolina. And in 2016, Kevin completed the Practice in Transformative Action program. Kevin's a longstanding participant and engaged at the East Bay Meditation Center, where he's been co-coordinating spiritual programs for men for many, many years. And he's also a community teacher there. He's also a community teacher at Insight Richmond. And Kevin's focus and centers his practice is much on uprooting patriarchal systems in Dharma communities. So I'm really honored to have my friend, co-practice Dharma brother. So thank you, Kevin, for joining us. Welcome.
Thank you so much, David. I appreciate you so much, and just the level of care that you took to invite me into this space was phenomenal. So thank you. And thank you, Jeff. I appreciate your coordination around this. And also, too, many of the other brothers in this Sangha who do various things to support this Sangha. Thank you as well. I understand how Sangha runs and operates. There are many, seen and unseen faces that are holding the container. So I appreciate each and every one of you. And just to the general Sangha community, welcome. I'm happy to be here. This is actually my first time penetrating the Sangha, coming into the Sangha. I think I've been to Gay Buddhist Fellowship a few times and never made it past the lobby and never made it into the sanctuary. So that's a little tidbit of information. And so now I'm invited into the sanctuary, but it's like, okay, well, I love to do this in person. So I'm looking forward to the opportunity to arrive in community and sit with each and every one of you when the conditions arise to be able to do so. For today's talk, or talk. I mean, this is the word that we're using. I am going to explore a little bit of the five faculties and just talk about the ways that we can use and utilize the five faculties to arrive at an awakened state. And not only to arrive at awakened state, but actually to cultivate this so that these faculties can actually transform into five spiritual powers or superpowers I like to use from time to time. And so one of the things that I've been learning in my own journey is that there is something else here in this Dharma practice that energizes the practice, that leads to transformation. And it took me a while to get to that point where now I'm actually having transformative experiences. I've actually plateaued at a few places in my own practice and almost have, given up on my practice a few times. But now, it seems like there's a lot of growth that is happening. And I would like to share with you how I got there, how I got to that point of growth in my practice. And basically why I'm sharing this with you all is just to offer support. Many of us, if I can connect this to gym culture, many of us have gone into gyms, have worked out for years, worked on the body, and maybe in that work, maybe the body plateaued or the exercise plateau somewhere along the line, and it's like, okay, okay, I plateaued here. What else is missing? And then you may have someone who knows a little something different than you, or just have a different perspective, and they come in and they make these adjustments, right? And these adjustments are not like something that is like super out of the ordinary. It could be like a small, profound adjustment, and next thing you know, you're like, whoa, like I didn't realize I wasn't bending in this way or curling my arm in this way, and you notice like, okay, I'm in a little pain right here. I feel a little tension. And so this is what my encouragement is just to offer like just kind suggestions here and there of how we can uplift our individual practices, right? To begin to cultivate deeper awareness. And not to say that many of us in this space haven't already done that. And I notice that I'm noticeably younger than a lot of folks. It's like, okay. And it's like, okay, dude, like I've been in this for like 20 or something years or so forth. But it's always that invitation to like always start at the beginning and with the beginner's mind. So I come here with a lot of joy and a lot of friendliness and sharing the Dharma with this community. So there's two things that I think is important to be able to navigate this discussion, this talk. And the first thing I would like to point to is just, taking care of the vulnerable parts, the vulnerable points in us. And I want to go ahead and uplift vulnerability because the vulnerability has gotten a bad rep. And so what I mean is, I don't mean like vulnerability, like, oh, I'm sharing my weaknesses and I'm creating this codependent, relationship. What I mean by vulnerability is that we all have blind spots in our practice, and we all have gaps in areas in our practice where maybe we're not seeing things clearly. Like there's some distortion. There's some distortion there. And so in the pointing to that distortion, it's like, that's a vulnerable spot, because that may be the actual spot where you may be causing yourself harm. This is where maybe the 5 hindrances, may be aroused or tripped, at this point, in this vulnerable space or opening. And so, as an intention in this space, the invitation is just to lead into the practice today with the firm question that you have for how you want to move through this. And if there's something that you're rubbing up against that may be difficult or whatever, allow that to be your teacher for this morning. I'm just the person that's doing the pointing. And the other piece that I want to bring into the room is the willingness. How willing am I to stretch? Because stretching, we may stretch too much, and it may become discouraged to go or seek further. And if we become too comfortable, we become too complacent, and we're not actually growing in our practice. So hopefully, I hope that I stir up some things and maybe, get one to just see, what one probably hasn't seen before. And so, as you go through this journey with me, it's just like, okay, how willing am I to take in this information? And where am I not ready to grow in this area? And whatever is for you is for you. It's perfectly fine. We're all on our individual journeys. And so I just wanted to mention those two things. And then before jumping forward, I actually want to mention my own condition that I'm working with in terms of showing up with you all today. Yesterday I got my second COVID shot. I work in a very social services that requires me to at some point go back into the field. And so I was actually prioritized to get this shot. And in this moment, I'm working with a very low grade fever, but a massive headache. And this is a beautiful thing. Actually, I want to share this with you. It's a beautiful thing because it's not a distraction. This is actually allowing me to lean into my imperfections. I think there's a lot of weight on someone being a teacher and showing up perfectly and saying all the good things and trying to convince, others to listen or to, buy into what I'm saying. And it's like, okay, no, this is a reality. I'm very imperfect. The body is definitely reacting to this vaccine. And so I share that with you. And that is also an invitation for each and every one of you to bring in your own imperfections and conditions that you're working with in this moment. I'm certainly not the only one that has gotten a vaccine or is dealing with some physical discomfort. So please take care of yourself, and you'll see me pause from time to time and take a sip of tea to, hydrate. And so I invite you to do the same. Not a problem. And so now that we gotten that out the way, I can go ahead and share a little bit of this journey. It's like, okay, the 5 faculties. Okay, I've heard this before. I may have studied this, the 5 faculties, and what does this person have to offer? And so I come, I come with a lot of humbleness, and hopefully that clarity will carry itself over. And so there are actually 5 faculties in this journey of awakening. And I think this is important to say because in the Buddhist tradition, in this pathway, there's actually a clear delineation between mindfulness, what we know, as mindfulness, or maybe what we don't know as mindfulness, and what is actually dharma, dharma practice. And in our culture, in American culture, we kind of conflate the two together. And so a lot of us maybe have perfected mindfulness, mindfulness in or calling it our practice, but not really getting any transformative results. And that's really not, it's not it's not like there is something wrong with you if this is something that you're experiencing. But this is like a product of a culture that packages things in quick and easy ways. And I'm not here to demonize mindfulness. Actually, this is where I lived. I've waded in the mindfulness oceans for about a good 6 years in my practice. It's just like wading in there in the shallow pool. But what I was experiencing in my body in that time was a lot of internal violence, that was perpetuating a lot of internal violence against myself. And actually, I thought that this was a normal aspect of the practice, is like to endure, right? To actually endure this, the normality of me striking against myself, like hitting myself with the second arrow. It's like, okay, I'm going to force myself to get on that cushion, and I'm going to get it right this time. I'm going to be perfect, and how that impacted me is that over time I just got exhausted, and then started finding ways to like fall out of practice. And, admittedly, and I've caused a lot of harm in Sangha, like as many of us early in our practice, we come into Sangha and we want to make friends. And for many of us, this has supplemented family that maybe we have that are far away, or family that we don't have. And things get messy and it gets complicated. And no one taught me that there are certain qualities and conditions that one cultivates within to be able to effectively utilize Sangha, the Buddha, the Dhamma, the 3 jewels. And so although, I enter at the mindfulness point, mindfulness actually comes third, on the list in terms of the faculties. If we're moving down the road of the 5 faculties, what comes first is faith, and then gradually moving into vigor or developing a zest for the practice. Then comes mindfulness. And as we use mindfulness to stabilize our minds, where we can connect mind, body, and awareness, then we enter into deep concentration, which leads to transformation, which is wisdom. And very briefly, what wisdom looks like, at the top level, is that we're no longer trying to concretize the world or ourselves. That we can actually be with the 10,000 joys and the 10,000 sorrows. And did I mention that I'm dealing with like a low grade fever right now? And this is like where the difficulty that I'm sitting with. But there's like a massive joy here too, just being with each and every one of you in this new incredible Sangha that I've never been able to enter the sanctuary because of my own conditioning or my own time constraints and so forth. But I'm here with you all, and I'm making friends, And so one of the things that we start with at the beginning, as we're working with our faith, is that there is an understanding or a cultivation of an understanding here that the Buddha himself, he wasn't the creator. And again, if we come to this practice projecting, magical powers onto the Buddha, and then, and then this is what needs to be adjusted. The Buddha himself was a man that did not concretize, by the way, samsara, the will of samsara or Mara. He learned how to meet it and to create a safe and healthy distance, right? But samsara, the will of samsara, which is just the everyday suffering, was there. This is what we inherit in our human form. That the 8 winds are constantly there, but how do we develop the equanimity to stay centered, right? And that we don't lose, we don't lose our stability, that it comes actually from within, that we're not seeking without for our sense of security. And so this is what the Buddha was able to master in his teachings as he touched the earth, right? And the earth was his witness. This is what he was able to witness for himself. And I'll go ahead and take a drink of tea. And the second point in faith is cultivating, learning one's place and cultivating community without getting into this the momentum of criticizing or disparaging. That Sangha actually has its own natural flow, and what our jobs are in all of this is to discern and assess whether this is the right garden, if this is the right garden bed if this is the right garden bed in which we can plant our seed for our growth. And one of the images that comes forth a lot in the Dharma is this image of the bija tree. And I don't even know if I'm saying it right. I'll have Jeff do a correction at the end, because I know he spent a lot of time in India. But this tree is used a lot, in the stories, and also to illustrate, what the practice is like. So what we're doing is we're finding the right soil to plant our seed, so that we can nurture, and grow this plant, which is a tree. And the reason why this tree is so significant to the practice is because it actually has one of the hardest, most endurable core, which is what is referred to as heartwood. And David, I'll just reference to you. This is the name of the Dharma center that I practice with. It's called Heartwood, and so that was maybe the name that you were going for. And as we become strong and resilient trees, we plant in community and we become strong and resilient trees. We're able to withstand the external conditions, right? And so this is what Sangha is developing the faith that you can discern where is a good place for you to begin to develop one's own practice. And in terms of, and when we think about, okay, just lost my thought for a second. And running a little hot. Okay. So, and when we think about the three jewels, how this all kind of plays into one another is the Buddha, the Buddha himself is a mirror image of his, of the capacity that he was able to develop. And we call this capacity, right, to be with oneself, is loving kindness. And this is what the Buddha was able to demonstrate to not only to his disciples, but this is the legacy that he left behind, is that we can actually cultivate the capacity to be with what is. And we actually don't have to endure the suffering, and that the Buddha himself wasn't a creator. He was a man that was able to cultivate this practice. And then the third is the Dharma, the Dharma, it's basically where the rubber meets the road, that tension. And we all have that tension. None of us is beyond that tension of life. And so as I'm coming here and sharing with you all, I'm working with my own tensions that I'm holding. And as I'm speaking, I'm doing an internal process of just letting go of what is and seeing if I can hold the paradox of life as it is manifesting through me at this moment. And that is the unpleasant with the pleasant, but somewhere in that middle is a sweet spot. And so we're doing this in service of achieving that sweet spot. And so something I want you to think about in your own practice is, where am I, in terms of community? Is this, am I a creature of habit, or am I seeking comfort? How willing am I? What is my willingness to stretch into a practice that I've never experienced before? And just really wanting to highlight generosity, the generosity of such a practice. I think this is where generosity is really cultivated. And this is one of the reasons why generosity was a very foundational teaching in the Buddhist practice. Even more so, disciples had to master generosity before they can even move on to the more the ethics, right, that comes in the zest or the vigor stage that comes after the faith. Yeah, disciples had to sit with this generosity, approaching the practice not with a clenched fist, right? With what is it that I can receive, what is it that you have to give, but actually what an openness. And how I've been able to experience this in my personal life, this quality or virtue, which is actually the first parami, how I've been able to experience this is that dana is, which is actually one of the aspects of generosity, just one of the aspects. There's two other aspects. But the way that I share resources with others is flowing. It's there's less of a stinginess there, because I have a faith now, cultivated a faith that now I can actually discern. I have an inner truth, or inner trust. That's the word I'm looking for, an inner trust. I trust myself that I can go into any container and see if it's actually working for me or not, and make adjustments, as I need be, without attacking the teacher or other Sangha members or structure of the Sangha. And regardless to what I get out of it, the resource that I give, it just frees with a lot of fluidity. No one never taught me that, didn't teach me that. And so if that's new to you, I'm happy to share that gift. And for many of you, it's like, okay, I knew that. All right, what else you got? And the second arc of generosity, which is actually my favorite, is that as we delve into our practice and we begin to cultivate this faith, this element of faith at a deep level, that we begin to unfold, as we begin this purification process of letting go of attitudes and qualities, not virtues, but attitudes and qualities that no longer serve us, which for some of us takes a lot of time, because there's a lot of conditioning that we're working through. So I offer compassion to a lot of folks who haven't made it to that point. But this element of generosity is where we're unraveling these conditions within us, that we do this fearlessly, right? And how that comes across, or what people see, is a genuine authenticity begins to arouse. That we can show up in spaces and actually be ourselves, of course, skillfully, not in a messy way, but that we actually can be our whatever quality or whoever you are, what energy you bring into the world, that you can actually show up with that and practice confidently. And that generosity actually increases the faith in others that they can do the same. Because you can talk all day and all night, and I've been there, I've heard teachers day in and day out. But if you're not modeling that vulnerability, what's not clear to you, or if you're not modeling that humanity, it's really hard for me to take in information. That's just me. But how is this relating to you? And then the third piece of it is that we bring others into this transformative quality. We actually, and I think I've heard this like at AA meetings, is that you actually don't prophesize to other people. It's attraction rather than promotion. And so the great joy of being in this practice is that we're not actually convincing people to convert to Buddhism or to become a Buddhist. That our transformative ways of being, the great, as we're arousing transformation within us, it begins to arouse faith in others that they can actually walk down this road too. And so this is like a culmination of how we arouse faith, using the three jewels. And then as in the Buddhist, from the Buddhist lens, then we begin to delve into our ethical practice. And this is where the zest and the vitality actually increases. And so I do have a little story for you. Two of my teachers, two teachers, one that's not listed in David's introduction, but there was a teacher that I went to go visit, and many of you may know her, Venerable Robina Corton. And I had this question for her. because I was depleted. I was depleted in my work life. I was depleted in my home life. I was just completely demoralized. And I asked her this question. I said, raising my hand, I said, what does self-care look like without? And before I can even finish the question, she came up with an answer. Actually, there was a tug of war because I wanted to finish, I wanted to add all this fluff and context to my answer. And she's like, no, I already have an answer for you. Like, no, I can tend to that. It's like, no, Kevin, I can tend to that. Are you willing to receive the answer? And this is how she talks, very, very curt and straight to the point. And what she said, it was a turning point for me. And she said that if your self-care, is based in materialism or like, okay, well, I'm going to indulge in a movie or my favorite coffee, or my meal, that gives you immediate satisfaction, but it doesn't sustain you. She said, tend to the virtues, the paramis, tend to those, and it will arouse zest within you. And to me, that was a paradigm shift, because all the way into that point, I was fighting, that external world, trying to reach into my internal goodness, which was already there. We're all endowed with the quality of goodness. There's nothing to perform there. And another thing that kind of brought my practice into focus is that it was illustrated to me how much we perpetrate internal violence against ourselves on a day-to-day basis. And what I mean by internal violence is I roll out of my bed, and maybe I'm walking around my bed and I stub my toe. I stub my toe in that corner of the bed. And I know some folks have stubbed their toe and it hurts, but it's like, then what internal messages are we telling ourselves, from that point on? This is a crappy day. Wow, things didn't, this is not going to be good. Then you go downstairs, you go into the kitchen, you find that your partner didn't wash the dishes or do something that you want your partner to do. And it's like, well, damn, and it's like, then we are committing this violence on top of violence on top of violence, because we're trying to concretize the world. We want the world to be as we want to see it, not actually how it actually is. And it's a great eye opener, because we're all conditioned to do it. And actually our society actually supports that. Massive intensive suffering, just the little things that we do to ourselves. And so some of the practices that if you are struggling with this internal violence, some of the practices that you can actually bring to the forefront is basically a forgiveness practice that looks like patience. Can we invite this quality of forgiveness, for people just being people, not meaning that we don't adjust and that we don't move on, or that we don't have to be firm about what our boundaries are, but can we actually soothe ourselves with forgiveness? Or how about another quality, or arousing another quality of intense, bringing in gratitude. And gratitude doesn't mean that this thing of just, I'm thankful. But maybe the gratitude looks like just looking around your room right now. What is actually working? Just pointing out like what is actually working, what is actually functioning. What am I overlooking? What is in my, going in my, what is supporting me? I was going to say what is actually in my favor, but not even what is in your favor, but what is supporting me in this moment, and just naming those things. And so once we have developed, right, and spent some time with the element of faith and the element of vigor, and then we can move into a mindfulness practice, because we actually have something in our toolkit, right? We're not giving power to someone outside of us. We have all that we need internally inside. We're not turning away from suffering. We're actually are letting it in, but not only just letting it in, we're allowing it to move through us. And something that could be helpful in one's practice is know this, that there is a spontaneity that we can practice with our mindfulness, because the conditions of our body are changing moment to moment. So what you did yesterday may not work today. And I think that's where many of us, not all of us, but many of us get tripped up, thinking that consistency in our practice looks like it needs to look like the same thing every day. How present can we be with our bodies as it is in this moment? And that really takes leaning into the body, bare noting. I like that practice of bare noting, just noting what is happening in this moment. And if I'm able to sit here with my body, I can tell you, my left leg is numbing. The throat is dry. The stomach is tight. There's pain behind the eyes. And as I'm allowing this, applying mindfulness in this way and allowing just the body to be, then I can facilitate the trust between my awareness, my body, and in my mind. I start developing friendliness toward my body. Then I can stabilize my body so that I can enter into a concentrative state, which comes next after mindfulness. Right? This is what concentration looks like, is that you develop enough trust with the body that you can meet the body exactly where it is in the moment, and that you could develop some stabilization, that you could stabilize the mind and body, and that you can bring it into a focus. It doesn't mean that the world is not crashing or falling apart, and I think if I can critique, something here, is that, many of us, we cling on and hold on to this notion of needing to always be in a perfect place, in order for us to have these insights. And the Buddha did actually, teach the power of exclusion, being in a place that is, I don't know the word, exclusive, away from other people, being with oneself. But what happens when you're in the financial district, when you're downtown, and you need to practice right there in that moment? And then we move into our transformative awareness, wisdom, where we're actually able to be with things as they are, and not the way that we want things to be. That there's a mutual understanding that I could be with this, and that it's perfect, perfectly imperfect. That all these imperfections they're all me. What is perfect in this moment is me. What is imperfect is me. I'm all of it because I'm the one that's projecting and adding meaning and value. But now I can take a sense of ownership of this, and I'm not committing this violence against myself. The second arrow of making pain more than what it has to be. It's not personal that my body is feeling a fever right now. This is what happens when you get a vaccination. I know a few of you on here. I know at least one of you that read your status on Facebook, and this is what the body does. And I know you're aware of that. And so how do we build the capacity for loving kindness? And so I'm going to share a story very quickly and then open it up to whatever David needs to do, the closing of the space. But I want you to know that I'm actually going to stick around too for conversation afterwards. So if we want to meander a little bit on this path together, I'm here. I'm here with you. I am with you. I have capacity to be with you. But I will share very quickly. I'm at the beginning of the pandemic a year ago. I was in the grocery store. I was unpacking. I live in Oakland. I was at Pack and Save. I remember at Pack and Save on 40th and San Pablo. And it was the first time where they had the arrows. When they introduced the arrows of, this lane goes this way, this lane goes that way. And there's a system that they wanted us to move through the store with. Well, I wasn't paying attention to the arrows because I was, I had anxiety about going out. Does the mask work? Will I get toilet paper? And y'all remember that the early parts of the pandemic, how it was pure pandemonium. And so I go into the grocery store and I find myself going down an aisle where people were coming at me. And I didn't understand why all these shopping carts were coming at me. And I looked at everyone as an enemy, like, all these people are trying to infect me with COVID. I'm going to die in this grocery store and, just flipping out. And almost to the point where I was having a panic attack in the store. And just in that moment, I was able to arouse a loving kindness practice. And just in that moment, I remember it like it was yesterday, right there where the yogurt and the sour cream and the cream cheese, if that part where it's like a freezer, but it's not a freezer because it's kind of like open where you could just reach in and get what you need. But I was there. And I remember closing my eyes and doing the loving kindness practice, metta, increasing my capacity to show up with tenderness. And I remember evoking all of that, all those emotions, and sitting with the forgiveness, the forgiveness that we're in this, that we gotten ourselves in this pandemic as the human race, the forgiveness of myself for coming into the store when I knew I probably could have did, mail order, just loving kindness for everyone. And I aroused this loving kindness in this aisle, and I opened up my eyes. When, I went to this crescendo, and I'll wrap up the story. I opened up my eyes, and what I saw wasn't the reality that I was projecting onto the world. But what I saw in that moment was that everyone was scared like me, trying to figure this thing out. Deathly afraid. And that, for me, that aroused compassion for me. Just nodding at my fellow, yielding the basket, allowing people to move, friendly hellos. And in that moment, I was more of a service to my little section of humanity by being able to show up in this way. And so I'll end the talk right there. And I'm sorry for not allowing that time for that Q&A, but I just felt like it's just so important to uplift one another, to make that delineation between a mindfulness practice and what it is to arouse qualities of transformation in our lives. And hopefully what was shared is a benefit. And if not, then maybe this wasn't the time. And with that, I'll kindly bow to David. And again, thank you so much for your kindness and your warmth. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kevin, for your talk. Wow, it's a lot. A lot of wisdom. I appreciate that a great deal. And thank you for your willingness to stick around at noon. Maybe what I'll just do is do our announcements and dedication and merit. And if it's before 12 even, people can stick around. We can start a Q&A even if you're able to. So thank you again. And there's 37 of us here, and I just want to thank everyone for joining. I see that Jerry's put in the chat for next week that J.D. Doyle will be our speaker next week, who's come and spoken with us a few times. Also want to remind everybody that on Wednesday evenings, the Sangha has a sit at 7:30, and it's the same link, and it can be found at gabebuddhist.org. And it's a 30-minute silent sit that's followed by a group discussion. So it's a chance just to, to connect and practice together. And the Sangha and this work is sustained by dana of its members each week. Every week, our speakers receive dana based on, given, and that comes from all of our contributions. So we want to ask if you're able to please consider making a contribution, offer dana today to support the Sangha, to support Kevin. And through the pandemic, although we haven't been able to be at the San Francisco Buddhist Center, we've contributed towards their monthly expenses to sustain that relationship and their needs, as well as our kind of home, our physical home, when we're able to meet. So the link is in the website or on the chat right now to go directly to PayPal, or you can go through the website to the donation page at your time that you can make that possible. And I want to ask if there are any other announcements, any events, talks, things that you think the community would be benefit knowing about. Feel free to unmute yourself and share.
Hello, everyone. This is Mark. I just want to let people know about Queer Dharma. That's with the San Francisco Zen Center. It's once a month on Saturdays. It was yesterday, but it's really a lovely Sangha, and they've got a core group of teachers there, and it's just a nice thing to do for an hour and 15 minutes on Saturday. So you can head to San Francisco Zen Center and check it out. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
I just want to especially thank Kevin for coming today with a flu-like feeling and modeling your humanity with us today, and refreshing my memory of the 5 faculties is really wonderful. Thank you so much.
Great. Well, what I like to do is we can do the dedication of merit, and then for people who want to stick around and be in conversation, we can do that for a bit. Kevin, would you like to do the dedication of merit, or I'm happy to lead that in the kind of a traditional style?
Yeah, I would love to hear the traditional style in which this community honors.
All right, thank you. Well, for any merit or all the merit that's been accumulated during our time together, we dedicate that to the benefit of all beings everywhere. May all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all beings be free from sorrow and the causes of sorrow. May all beings never be without the supreme bliss, which is free from all suffering. May all beings live in the great equanimity, which is free from all attachment and aversion, and believing in the equality of all that lives.
Thanks, David. Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, Jeff. Hope to see everyone soon.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Kevin, thank you so much for a fantastic talk. I really appreciate this manifest in self-violence. And I found this a really rich experience listening to you today. Especially, I have a friend who posted something on Facebook today that he's feeling down and unappreciated. And this gives me, I think, a path to kind of help him maybe find a way out of that space. So thank you for sharing your journey. I think it's really, really helpful.
Hi, Kevin. Hi, everybody. I wanted to respond. A couple of things, two things. I really liked your delineation from mindfulness practice and then Buddhist practice, because for me, my introduction to Buddhism came through when I was teaching. We connected with mindfulness in the schools. So the whole idea is this, secular mindfulness. And I also, along those lines, I remember somebody talking about how they went to a conference of American Buddhism, and somebody said, what's the biggest kind of danger of American Buddhism? And the response was that it just becomes another kind of self-help. Mm-hmm. So I was really thankful to get introduced to meditation and mindfulness practice when I realized, but there's all this other really, really good stuff. There's the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Noble Path. And so anyway, that's when I really began becoming involved with the Dharma. And then I realized, okay, the three jewels, I got the Buddha, I got the Dharma, I need a Sangha. Gee, and this is where I ended up here. But the last point I wanted to make was just how much faith has played, what the importance of faith. And for me, I learned about I learned them as the five powers through Thich Nhat Hanh's book, The Heart of Buddhist. And his definition of faith is the confidence we receive when we put into practice a teaching that helps us overcome difficulties or reach transformation. And that's what I love so much, is like, from a Western kind of faith is like belief. But, this is a different kind of view of faith. It's trust. And that has been so essential, because sometimes I still, believe it or not, sometimes I find myself not responding appropriately to situations and falling back into those unskillful ways that I responded to unsatisfactory situations in my life. And what gets me through is saying, no, you've got those here to see you through, to get you through. And so faith, I just wanted to say, and I've been spending a lot of time with Vinny Ferraro doing the Year to Live workshop. And that's one of the things I love about him. His faith in the Dharma is so strong and so palpable. I'm getting goosebumps talking about it. But it's great if you start if that doubt starts rising up. It helps having somebody nearby to kind of remind you that, this stuff is solid stuff. So thank you, Kevin, for your talk.
I was just gonna say that there are old souls in young bodies and young souls in old bodies, and even though sometimes GBF is nicknamed the Gray Buddhist Fellowship, there is no guarantee of wisdom with age. So it's great and encouraging to see you, Kevin, on a conscious path and trying to figure things out through your daily life as well as studying. So that was good. So don't feel conspicuous. You're fine.
I felt the same way. You brought things. It was like a fresh exposure to the practice that was so enriching, and the depth of your wisdom and presence is really great. So.
Kevin, this is more of a practical question. I missed which Sangha you usually go to in the East Bay, and then also you said something about with David, and I thought it was another Sangha. So I was just wondering, if we want to follow you or hear you online or whatever.
Oh, thanks so much, Greg. I am with Insight Richmond, which is a very small community based in Richmond, and I also am a community teacher at the East Bay Meditation Center. But I'm not doing much. I'm not doing much of the teaching. It's just something that doesn't appeal. It doesn't appeal to me. I don't, for whatever reason, it doesn't. I'm more into the practice and the community development aspect of enriching Sangha. But when I'm asked, I show up, and that was kind of like one of the things. When David reached out to me, David Hunt right here, he reached out to me and was just like, hey, would you come and offer Dharma? And I'm like, of course. But it's not something that I regularly do. But if you wanted to catch me, I teach once a month at Insight Richmond, and that's just my commitment to teaching. It's just once a month, and then the occasional invitation.
Well, thank you
that website
for following David's call for joining us very much.
Jeff, I heard, is there a website?
Like a Zoom link? Do you meet on Zoom?
Yeah. And I can share that Zoom link at some point, pass it to Matthew, or because I know Matthew sends out a lot of emails, or to you, Jeff, or David.
Mm-hmm. Great.
This is Chris over here, way in the corner. I actually started looking at the 5 faculties this past week. I was really so glad you brought it up. It has brought up my practice a number of times in my life, and I've learned from it. But recently, I've been picking up Sayadaw Tejaniya's teachings again, sort of watching your attitude. Devin Berry brought this up a few weeks ago, that he uses for inquiring, and I was introduced to his work about a decade ago and looked at it, and I really appreciated it. And his whole presentation is actually, as you sit, these 5 faculties all rise and they all strengthen, and they're always sort of there, appearing, disappearing, reappearing. And I started sort of in the Zen tradition, but much of my practice for the past maybe 15 years has been with the Vipassana group, Spirit Rock, IMS, etc. And the whole usage of like the 7 factors, the 4 Brahma Viharas, as sort of areas to look at and see how our practice is working with those structures. And every time I revisit them, I learn more. And each time I revisit them, I go to the shallow end of the pool. I love your usage of that, where I'm kind of waving to people and I can breathe a little better and I'm not quite sure. And then I'm heading kind of to the deep end, and where I'm kind of choking my own shit, and I have to kind of come back. And it's just this like cyclical process of doing that. And it strengthens. And as it strengthens your faith. And then it's sort of onward leading, and you get a little more energy. I'm really appreciating looking at Sayadaw U Tejaniya's teachings now. I've been doing this past week, sort of daily, just sort of the releasing of tension that we cause ourselves by doing the practice because we're trying to get it right. We know this next sitting, yesterday I had a great sitting. I'm sitting today and it's all shit. And I'm just at the beginning and I'm not just at the shallow end of the pool. I have to get out of the pool and figure out what the hell I'm doing. And sort of at that point, it's sort of like realizing what's my intention. Why have I been doing this for 30 years? And I realize it's the freedom it offers me. It's the liberation it offers me, not only to myself, but to others, sort of pain I might cause in others and to myself. So it's just sort of more onward leading. The faith gets stronger. But these 5 faculties, according to Sayadaw U Tejaniya's teachings, is sort of based on the 3rd foundation of mindfulness. But specifically, it really makes you look at your hindrances and those attitudes that are there in driving us. We have no choice. It's not even our personal decision. We don't want to be dealing with this, but they just sort of drive us along due to our genetics, our culture, Trump, whatever might be going on. So anyway, thanks so much for your talk. I'm really glad you were here. And I'm glad to hear from everybody else.
Kevin, this is Tom. I'd like to make a comment of appreciation and then ask you a question or two. I really liked what you said about, what you demonstrated. You went back to it a number of times about generosity and self-care. And I like what you said about self-care that's based on feeling good. Won't sustain us. And so we have to look to the 10 perfections. And I think that's really helpful for me because oftentimes, at some point in the day or the week, I'm stressed out. I'm like, oh, how can I get back to my happy place? And we turn to things that may not necessarily sustain our practice. So I think just pulling up that list and picking one thing would really be a great way instead of falling on the couch with Netflix or, just trying to relax. So that's a great reminder and I appreciate that. I have a question. You mentioned early on in your talk that you'd come to GBF before and not made it into the sanctuary or maybe not sat with us. And I want to make sure I understood that right. And I really don't want to put you on the spot. So
go ahead.
Feel free to decline, because as a community, we're always trying to, look at ways to be more inclusive. Any barriers that we have unwittingly created to that. Is there something you can share about that experience, if I understood it right, that, might have been a barrier? That would be instructive to us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Thomas. Actually, no, there was no condition with GBF that didn't allow me to go through those doors. What it was that I actually showed up for a book club. It was a book club to explore radical dharma and other books that support the practice. So at that time, I was tending to a grandmother who was dying as a primary caregiver. So I was just looking for a refuge to come to, but I didn't have the time to sit in practice and then do the book club afterwards. So I had this small window of time, but I do remember coming to GBF and it was Daigon was like the holding the space and David was like the support person. And I remember that it was this back and forth because Daigon said, this is going to be, white male space. White men's going to do white men work. And and David was like, well, no, it's going to be this could be a multicultural space. And I remember David reaching out to me and saying that he valued me being there, like he valued and hoped that I would return. And so at the next meeting, we had this consensus where I asked the group, is it okay? Because I think I was the one I don't think I was the only person of color, but I was the one who was visibly a person of color. And so, we had this vote, like, is it okay? Am am I pulling away from the work of white men getting together? And the consensus overwhelmingly was like, no, we want you in this group. Unfortunately, I can only stay with the group for one book. My grandmother died right after that. So it was like I was introduced to this space, but I never went beyond the lobby, that lobby area. But that was because of what I was dealing with in my own life.
Okay, great.
Yeah. And then I don't know if you needed to know all of that. Just wanted to.
No, actually, I had been part of that book group. It was very valuable. So I know exactly what you're talking about. I remember that conversation.
You were there.
I don't know if I was there, but I might have been. Yeah, I sat in on some of them. I couldn't make each one. Yeah.
I'm glad we clarified the entrance into the meditation hall question, because
I thought maybe you saw us and turned and ran or something.
Or I was hoping maybe it was because you were late and all the seats were taken instead of we weren't welcoming. Yeah.
No, not at all. Yeah. Not at all.
Yeah. I have to make a confession. I actually, I was concentrating on so many other things while you were talking. I mean, and your talk as well, but I missed the fifth superpower.
Mm-hmm.
Can you remind me in a word what that was?
Yeah. So the fifth faculty being wisdom.
Of course.
But I don't think I necessarily framed it that way in the talk. I framed it more of like, this is a stage where we experience transformation, where we actually become or grow into relationship with what is, as opposed to what we want it to be. And I think that's probably why you may have missed that, because I didn't actually say wisdom.
That's such a deep way to look at wisdom, because usually in Western societies we think of like acquired knowledge as wisdom and stuff, but that deep sort of embodied wisdom that starts to arise out of practice, it's like, wow, it's sort of deciding for me, and it's a transformative quality too. It's quite beautiful. I have a question about Panavati. She's a trip. I've listened to her talk a number of times. Do you want to tell us anything about her?
Yeah, absolutely.
How you got hooked up with her?
Absolutely. I heard her. Okay. She was the only Dharma teacher that my mom went with me to a talk. Very early on in my practice, my mom accompanied me to a talk, and it just so happened to be a night that I was introduced to Panavati. And the overwhelming concern that my mom had for me was, because at that time I was caretaking my grandmother, she actually thought I was losing my mind and was joining some cult and all this weird things. And she actually went with me to this talk to see Panavati at East Bay Meditation Center. And in that encounter, she said, "Oh, like, I support you in your practice." Not that I was looking for my mom's support, but I'm just, this is how I was introduced to Panavati. And then I didn't see Panavati for many years. And then encountering her, like, later on down the road, I just found that she was so unique in that she was herself, that she was really herself. And, but I still wasn't convinced, I wasn't convinced that she was a teacher for me. It wasn't until I did a month-long stay at Heartwood that, I hope, I can bring this into this space, but where this meditation center is located, it's in North Carolina, at the bottom of the Blue Ridge, mountains, the Smoky Mountains. And it's, and outside of Asheville, it's a very conservative, place that can be hostile to people of color. I've experienced it firsthand, and not only can be hostile to people of color, but can be hostile to the Buddhist, because it's not Christian and it looks weird and all of these things. And what I was able to see when I went there was how she was able to be herself in this place and actually to build connections with community members. And I found that to be remarkable. And this is a woman that has her trauma, as a Black woman, not that she identifies with that, overly identifies with that, but she has her own trauma of growing up in the South and experiencing firsthand, a lot of brutality that came with being a Black person in the South and, pre-civil rights. And the way that she showed up was just like with a lot of conviction, a lot of presence, and a lot of compassion. And I actually received a transmission from her just by her looking in my eyes. Actually, there was a time where she thought I was being dishonest with her. And she looked into my eyes to see if I was dishonest. And I told her the truth, but she quoted to me, and as she was making eye contact with me, she quoted to me the Metta Sutta. And there's like more context to this. She went away to New York, and I'll make this quick. She went away to New York on a trip. And the reason why I was there was because I told her I wanted to learn how to read the Dharma. I wanted to learn how to read the suttas. That's what it was. I wanted to learn how to read the suttas. But when she came back from New York after being away for a week, she saw me doing other things other than what I said that I was going to do. And when she came and she met me, she spoke directly. She penetrated all my conditioning and spoke directly to my awareness. And I had something like a transformative experience where I understood what she meant without her using a lot of words. And in that point, in that moment, I was like, oh, there is something more to this practice than just remembering lists and being perfect and sitting, and sitting in this perfect posture, that there's something there. And so I asked her at the end of my retreat, we were having this one-on-one, and I asked her, would she be willing to teach me how to show up as presently as I possibly can? And she asked me, was I'm willing to do the internal work? Mm-hmm. And I got scared, and I told her no, like I wasn't interested in doing the work, because I knew what she was asking was that, okay, this is a commitment, and to purify, it's a process that you have to go through, and I just wasn't ready at that time. But when the time, 2-3 years later, I was ready, and she accepted me into her Sangha. But it's been wonderful. I don't understand her a lot of times. She kind of moves at her own pace and at her own tune. But her faith, she's another teacher, right? As many folks have referenced teachers, she's another teacher that has tremendous amount of faith in her practice, and as a result, she has a tremendous amount of courage that even now I don't have. I'm still cultivating, but she has that, and I want that. I want to be able to experience that for myself.
Great, thank you.
Kevin, this is Bob. I haven't spoken yet. I just want to comment. One of the most powerful things about your powerful talk was knowing how you were feeling and still giving it with the strength that you did. And I just want to acknowledge it and say thank you. What you did and how you did it exemplified, I believe, much of what you wanted to present. So thank you.
Thank you for acknowledging.
It's not easy feeling like doo-doo when you have some major obligation to complete.
Kevin, I have a second question. Unless somebody else has something they haven't asked yet, I'll give a little space for that first.
I just have a quick comment. Kevin, the courage that you see in your teacher, I saw you embody in your talk.
Thank you.
Yeah, that you had moments that you felt you faltered, but you just stayed right there. Yeah, your presence was courageous. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Jeff. Can I just make a quick comment? So I would I would say this. So one of the core teachings that Panawati is guiding us on is overcoming ourselves. And so she has this thing is like, you don't give Dharma talks with paper. I don't want to see you give a Dharma talk with an outline. And there's nothing wrong with it. There is nothing wrong with it, but it's like, can you overcome yourself in the moment to be able to show up presently? And that's what I was practicing, during that duration. Not that, and again, I was struggling, at certain points, but as I was cultivating like these perfections, in the moment, I was like, oh, I got another burst of energy. Okay, it's gonna be okay. Okay. There's a lot of joy, there's a lot of joy in the room. And so a big part of my practice is moving through my internal narcissism and trying to be as present as I can. And so thank you. So thank you so much, Jeff, for acknowledging that.
What was your question, Tom?
Oh, yeah. So, Kevin, I want to ask you about generosity, something that I struggle with in a particular way. So I have a family member who struggles dealing with life, has addictive behaviors, makes a lot of bad decisions, is currently homeless off and on, and, so I doing my best to create boundaries and, not just be like an ATM. But one of the things that I find is that I struggle with, when I have to say no, even though, I have some money, but I got my own bills to pay. Those feelings of feeling stingy, perhaps, like you mentioned, generosity and not being stingy and whatnot. So I know it's a little bit of a complex thing, but any insight you have on maybe how to deal with the feelings of, viewing myself as being stingy, even though I'm really doing a lot. How would you approach that? Do you have any thoughts on that?
So what I'm hearing you say is that there's this family member who has addictive qualities that may be, in fact, causing a lot of harm to themselves, who is without home, who is homeless, who's out there. And what I'm hearing is that you do actually give, but not to the level that this person wants you to give. And what you're wrestling with is the internal dialogue that you're having with yourself in terms of how much I should give. Am I being stingy for withholding? This kind of thing. Like, should I give more? Is that so? Am I right in terms of that? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, over the past year, I've helped him, get into motels and stay and all this stuff, but he keeps making bad decisions and, like $8,000 over the last year. And yet I feel like I could dump $10,000 or $100,000 into that hole, and it would only be a matter of time before he's back at my door.
Right. So what I'm hearing from you is that there's a lot of discernment already that the condition in which he's in right now, the financial resources that you may be extending to him may not be used wisely, something that will sustain him for the long run. That maybe what you're offering is perhaps maybe even enabling him. I'm just throwing that part.
No, that's true. Yeah, that could be. It's one of the other things I wrestle with. So how does one deal with those feelings of, just kind of trying to find the right balance, feeling stingy at times,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So is it stinginess that you're feeling, or is it this quality of not wanting to? Is it this quality of knowing that what you're giving may be contributing to his harm, the harm of himself, and knowing that maybe financial giving is not the giving that is most useful to him?
Yeah, I think it's more, it's less that, because, he's not really like an addict in the typical sense. He's codependent with his partner. And I think that's where the issue lies. But I guess it's more about, I've got money. He's here. He needs to get out from sleeping in his car, needs a hotel room. But I know if I do it, it's just going to be like kicking the can down the road, So at what point? Yeah, I guess it's struggling with drawing that line, the feeling of, I guess sometimes feeling I'm not a good Buddhist, for being generous.
Right. So generosity just doesn't extend to finances. And I think that was like one of the things I tried to express. So just the offering of your time, showing up, being present. Oftentimes when we meet people on the road, sometimes allowing people to see themselves clearly by mirroring one's pain to themselves in a way that is compassionate. Sometimes is more beneficial than enabling someone in their pain or their pain or vices. And so the way that I approach situations like this is that my generosity is not bound. My generosity is not bound to a person's quality or how they show up or what I believe that they will do. My generosity is bound to how I believe that the sharing and the giving is helping me in sustaining my practice. And so if I can make a parallel comparison, so like what family members who do drugs, I have a number of people in my family who do that, that have that crutch. I make sure that I don't enable folks to create further harm in their life, but just to show up as compassionately as possible. And if I know that I know if I can give when I can without this feeling of guilt or over attachment to the outcome, then I give. But if I give and I feel like I need to micromanage what they do with the money, and I have all this infliction that I'm doing on myself, creating harm, then I don't give, because it doesn't help me, and it's not helping that person. And so, and that's just the bottom line. And that's coming from a person who's at the core of my being is a people pleaser. It's one of the hardest things for me to do. But if my giving is going to cause me harm because I'm sitting up at night wondering what you're doing with money that I've given you, and then also I know that my financial giving could be contributing to your harm, then I don't give.
Yeah, that's very helpful. Thank you. Because I mean, what I heard is making sure that I'm part of the equation, and whether my generosity and giving sustains my practice. So that's a great way to look at it. Thank you.
Thank you for your generosity today, Kevin. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. I will say, though, I am, the body is doing a lot of weird things at this point. I think the body is aching for a Tylenol at this.
I have to run, you guys.
Hi, Jeff.
Yeah, we should let you go, Kevin. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for spending the Sunday with us. Hope you feel better. Rest up. Rest up.
And just want to come and sit in community. Yeah. I'm looking forward to it.
Okay. Have a good week, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks, David, so much.
Thank you. Talk to you later.
Bye, George.
Thank you for listening to the Gay Buddhist Forum. If you would like to hear several new talks per month and be notified of upcoming speakers so you can participate live, please subscribe to this podcast, like us on Facebook, and join our mailing list by visiting gaybuddhist.org.